What is going on, guys? I'm Retro Bliss. You are on Close Up with Retro Bliss, and today we're going to be talking about actually a topic that I addressed on Retro Bliss Rewind, but it's been a little while, and I want to revisit it. And with this format, this is more of an intimate format, and I thought this was a great topic to have my next guest. He is no stranger to the Retro Bliss Gaming show. He was a co-host of mine at Retro Bliss Rewind, and he is the only panelist that actually made it to every every show. I missed a few, and it was my show, but Mike, he stepped up, and I want to let everybody know that I really appreciate Mike a whole lot. And so without further delay, let's bring Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala on. What's going on, Michael?
Hello, stranger.
I know we were talking in the green room just a few seconds ago. While this is old hat for both of us, it's been a while.
It feels like longer than it probably actually has been.
Yeah.
But
I've had
you've
some
been
things
busy, I've been busy, and
yeah.
we used to talk every week, so.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting topic to talk about. Like I said, we mentioned this in our previous podcast on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast, but in the thumbnail that you guys are going to see, retro gaming isn't dead. Okay, it's not dead.
I hope not, and I certainly hope I'm not the one killing it.
Yeah, you certainly look like you are. Anyway, it's not dead, but it's kind of dying in some ways. We want to talk about, first of all, there are people who just want to play games. They don't care if they emulate or if they're playing on original hardware. And then there are purists who want to play on the original hardware. And even like me, I like if the console was built to be played on a CRT, I actually prefer that.
Yeah. There are certain systems, particularly 16-bit era, but even like the Nintendo 64, they actually, like, those games are designed for a CRT, and they use the scan lines for like dithering effects to get different effects. And playing through emulation, I mean, I don't poo-poo anybody who does. You and I both play a lot of emulation, but it's still not the 100% authentic experience. And so a CRT is part of that.
Right. And some of the emulators try to emulate the CRT effect by putting scan lines in, but it's just not the same.
Some of them are pretty good, but
some of them are good, but they're still not, it's still not 100% authentic in my opinion. But the problem that we're having is that all of these consoles that are out there, the further back you go in the generation of console gaming, there are more chances for that console to have like leaking capacitors or broken traces on the motherboards, that kind of thing. And not only that, the games themselves, especially the earlier ones that use cartridges, a lot of them used EPROMs.
Mm-hmm.
And those, I guess you can lose those on the cartridge somehow.
Yes. So I wouldn't, I do want to specify that, we're not in danger of, in general, losing systems and carts as a whole. Honestly, even within our lifetime, these have, especially pre-disc retro systems, it is super easy to replace capacitors, resistors, and it's, that information, especially with YouTube, like anybody can hop, a 10-year-old could hop on, and with a soldering iron, maybe a little solder braid, replace all the capacitors in one of these older systems, replace resistors, like Sega Master System. I've repaired a whole pile of those, and quite often it's a voltage regulator. Super cheap, super common parts that you can fix. Where you start to run into the problem is when dedicated chips, like the EEPROM in a cartridge, just die.
Yeah.
Uh, and it is not ultra common, but it happens. Um, part- and I find it happens more with the systems than it does with the cartridges. Um, and eventually, nothing lasts forever. Like I said, I think particularly the cartridges tend to be a little more stable than discs. Discs get a bad scratch or there's disc rot, and then you've got a big issue there. And I think actually any preserving priorities should probably go to those earlier disc systems. But it does happen. Thankfully, um, it's usually something very repairable, that you don't even have to outsource. Just a little bit of knowledge, and you'd be able to fix it. But you're right. I mean, eventually, after we're long gone, these systems, and it is starting now. The amount out there dwindle over time.
Yeah, because there are people that they either don't know what they have or they think it doesn't work, and it's like, okay, just pitch it,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of common. But
And can I add just one
sure,
thing is that even if you've got a system and it's dead, get it to a guy like Jesse from Ivory Tower Collections or somebody else. They will store those motherboards, and maybe it is legitimately dead, can't be repaired, but there's still chips on it that another system could be fixed with using those chips or something
yep,
like that. Like, get
yep,
it to every area has that guy that repairs systems. Um, get it to him or her, and maybe it will help to give life to another system.
yeah. Another problem too isn't just the system. It's like if we were talking about purist, it used to be that you couldn't give away CRTs, but I don't know about you,
Yeah,
but like if I'm on Facebook Marketplace or something, I'll see somebody with a CRT and they're asking like $100 for like a little 19-inch. I'm like, what? And I'm sure that there are exceptions. I have seen them, but people kind of know that that some of this stuff is in demand and people are using it for like retro gaming.
yeah. Even 10, 15 years ago, I remember like you'd on any given bulk pickup day for garbage, you'd see two or three of them out there somewhere.
And they'd be perfectly
Um,
fine.
Yet they'd be perfectly fine. It's just people upgrade to the digital and the HD and all that. Um, and then like I'd go to one of my local thrift stores and they'd have like 15 of them and a whole wall, and they would never sell. And what happened is they ended up trashing them all.
Yep.
And that is even like that is an industry that is, for all intents and purposes, dead. There are a couple, I think, military contracting companies that still make CRTs for military use, but nobody's making new CRTs.
I could kick myself in the butt if I could. I would if I could because I had a 36-inch Sharp, one of those
Beast.
that it was a beast. I mean, something that, I when I was a young man, I could actually move it by myself, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to where I live now and we started using the HDMI, and this was before retro gaming, I said, I had a buddy who had 4 boys, and they were all bigger than he was. And I said, "Hey, you can get this thing out of here. You can have it."
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, man, that would have been great to be playing
Oh,
my
yeah.
consoles on, but I can't do it anymore. So, um,
Especially the light gun games, they really benefited from a bigger television. Um,
oh, I'm sure it did. I don't know if I ever played it like on games on a big television. I think the ones I have in Bliss Cave are like 27-inch or
yeah,
something, but they're not
yeah.
anything like
When I was
36.
but just kinda to talk further about the CRTs, when I was at PRG last year, he had a whole bunch of them, and they're like 200-300 bucks
Oh my
each.
goodness.
And because he knows the market, right? Like, these are if you are a purist and you want a CRT, like I had a nice big 27-inch, I think, CRT. It was like the flat screen CRT. It was really nice. I hope I should actually ask my ex, but it's probably in her parents' basement still. And I could probably get that back for a song if I wanted. Um, but that, like, it was a beautiful CRT for gaming. Um, Weighed an absolute ton, but it's a shame. I've got two little, like, small one, like little 13-inch CRTs that I use for testing systems, but I don't really have a room for putting that. I don't have a Bliss cave. I do have a game basement, but it's got one big television. I don't have a place for another one.
Yeah. Um, I am very blessed to have the area that I do. It went unused for many years. And then when I started getting into retro gaming, it's like it, and then now I need more room, because I'm trying
Yeah.
to put things all along
No
the
matter
walls.
how
And I'm,
much room you have, you can always fill more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now that kind of brings me up to another point that I wanted to talk about. I started getting into retro gaming about 5 years ago, and it wasn't easy. Can you imagine someone right now who desires to get into retro gaming and they really don't have anything yet? And let's say they're a purist,
If
you know,
so, I would say it depends on what you want to get into. Like when I first started collecting, it was about 25, 26 years ago. And even back then, I remember looking at the prices of things and gawking. And I actually built most of my collection, at least the consoles, by buying something that doesn't work for way less than it was worth even back then and fixing it. And I am by no means an electronics genius or anything like that, but like I said, it's really easy to look up, okay, what capacitors do I need for this? And, what is a common problem for this? If it's something had a power issue, oh, those are the easiest. Like there's almost always just a trace or a fuse or a voltage regulator, and it just boom, the thing runs perfect.
yeah.
Um, I would suggest if you're trying to get into um, some certain systems anyway, that is still a good route. I know Michael, Retro Gamer 1977, he does that. I don't even have one of these. He got a Sears video arcade, the Intellivision Sears, with games and everything for $50.
Wow.
And he's been doing, he's been replacing capacitors on his systems. He got a ColecoVision as well. So like that's the way to go. But if you're really not inclined to do that, it is still, you can still find cheap Atari 2600 because it was so plentiful. And honestly, as much as it may be your and my first love, uh modern generations, you go to a game convention around here and things, 99% of it starts at the NES.
Yeah.
So if you
Because
want to go pre-NES, you can get a decent size collection. You can get a decent size Intellivision collection. You can even get a decent size ColecoVision collection. Um, like respectable. We're not talking like tons and tons, but a respectable. Like you can have a ColecoVision and 30 games in working order. It is not ridiculously priced. It's when you start going after the more popular stuff
or complete
is,
in box collections, right?
yeah,
So
when you start getting picky with how the label is, that's
yeah,
when you run into issues.
yeah. And well, at least right now, but it's still probably more expensive now than it was
Oh,
pre
yes, and that's
pre
always
COVID.
gonna happen. That's always
Yeah,
gonna happen. You used to go to the thrift store and there would be just a bin of 50-cent Atari games.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's not something you see much anymore.
No, now it's a $5 bin. But
Uh, well,
in
the Goodwills,
2026, $5 is still not bad.
yeah. Well, we have Goodwills around here, and they used to have games a lot. And now you go and come to find out that what they're doing is that they take things like that, they retro gaming stuff, and they assess the condition. and then they
And you
look
put
on
in the
eBay to see
glass
how much it's
counter.
going, and if it's out on the floor, it is not, it's eBay prices basically. And that's
You'll find that.
frustrating.
You'll find that. And I used to go to this, there was a Value Village near where I worked. And so every day at lunch, I'd go for a walk, no matter what the weather was, and I would go see what was at Value Village. And sometimes I'd find like one every 10 times I would find something. But they had a Tetris complete in box, which at the time was like a $15 game.
Yeah.
And they had $100 on it because it was a complete NES game. But then, and this is where the hustle comes in, like, because I would go every day. I remember this is a fun story. This is one of my favorite stories. It snowed like 3 feet, and I was like, I really don't want to go for my walk today. It was brutal outside. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go. And I got there, and out in the aisles for $7.99 each were complete and boxed Nintendo 64 games,
No
including
way.
Mario 64, Mario Kart 64. And these things were mint. They still had the bags on the cart inside. There were a few, like there was the WCW or whatever. Or was it WWF back then? Like just like wrestling games that I didn't care about, but I bought them anyway. There was Bust a Move, but there was Ocarina of Time. There was some really, really valuable game, and so the only reason they were still there, they were probably only up for half an hour, but on a regular day, if the weather wasn't bad, they would have been gone within 30 seconds.
Would you
But I walked
consider
in there and I
those?
just took them all down,
I
and
absolutely, I would have
and
done
this
the
is the
same
same
thing.
store that put Tetris at $100. So it all
Oh,
depends. You can
weird.
catch them slipping. You can catch them slipping.
Would you consider some of those things that you got on that particular day holy grails?
No, nothing there that was a holy grail, but that, like, I spent probably about $80. There's probably about 10 games, so I probably spent about $80, and there was easily $500 worth of games there.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's probably you're lowballing it. It's probably worth more than that actually.
Well, no, I'm probably not lowballing it, but they were desirable games even at the time. And of course you have to, my frame of reference is Canadian dollars. So let's say $400 US, and I paid $60 US for them.
That's crazy, man. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Well,
So
that kind
deals
of
can
thing
be
doesn't
found.
happen.
I wouldn't discourage somebody from trying to collect. I would just say you're going to have to work hard to
Th-
collect at a budget.
They're going to have to know their challenge. There are challenges involved nowadays. When
Yeah.
I first started going to yard sales, it was kind of common to find some of this stuff at a decent
Yep.
price and you could negotiate, but now it's not. I mean, every great once in a while, someone doesn't really know what they have, but now
Well,
people
and a
are.
trick that I used to, it's not really a trick, but something I used to do at every garage sale is I'd walk up and I'd be like, "Hey, you don't happen to have any other video game stuff, do you?" Like
Oh yeah, I've done that.
you'd see like a Sonic on the table, and then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I got a box of Genesis stuff in the garage. I didn't think anybody wanted." It's like,
Yeah,
"I do."
that's happened to me too. That's
Yeah.
definitely happened to me. But uh, I haven't right now. I'm not really actively collecting. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But that kind of brings me to the next point I want to talk about, and that's you know, the things that we were just talking about are kind of for purists that we were mentioning before. But some people
Like
really
you
don't
want the
care about
original
that.
consoles. Yeah.
They just want to play the games. And so obviously they can get some of these retro consoles. But even if they don't, there are ways to play retro games as long as you don't mind playing the digital version. Sometimes the digital
Yeah.
version seems to play a little differently. It just depends. Sometimes the emulators can be sped up or slowed down. It just, all that kind of stuff. Um, one thing that Atari is doing, obviously, this, the 2600 and the 7800 plus, they got the Sprint for the Intellivision now. Prior to that, there
Wait,
was
they do?
the Hyperkin the Hyperkin consoles. There were a number of different ones of that you could actually use cartridges, that kind of thing. But then you have things like the Game Station Go or the Game Station Pro, that uses basically ROMs. And then like there's some really
so
cool.
all of those things that you mentioned, they are all using the ROMs. It's just how do they get the ROMs?
Right. One the 2600, 7800, and they dump the ROM into
the ROM.
Yeah. Because when you on a regular console, you put a cartridge in, you turn it on, and it's up.
It reads it right from the cartridge.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to dump it. Yeah.
Right. And so it takes some time to do that. But there are also some new consoles being made of some of these old, like the analog 3D.
Yep.
That seems really cool. There's even in computer gaming, because I consider that retro gaming as well. You got the 400 Mini, you got the new Commodore computer that's out there.
And that isn't, and the Commodore computer, that isn't even emulation. That's not even an FPGA. That is the chipset. And you also have the Neo Geo AES that's coming out.
Yeah,
they're not calling it the AES Plus, are they? I forget.
No. I don't
think
know.
it's just
I just think
AES.
it's AES, but I'm not 100% sure about
Yeah,
that.
but it is they've replicated the chipset. It is a proper system. It's not even FPGA emulation.
What's really cool too is that they're releasing games along with it.
That's honestly, that's the best part. I have an AES, but if anybody wanting to collect cartridges for the AES, like even a crappy thing is going to cost you a fortune. But they're re-releasing now. They're not cheap. They're 90, like $90, $100 a piece. But compared to what they would be otherwise if you wanted to buy an original, that's an absolute steal.
Retro gaming, as long as you don't mind those kind of things,
yeah,
those games will probably be preserved for many, many, many years as long as people want to play them. Now, we talk about younger gamers. I was talking with one the other day. They have no interest in like Gen 2 at all. They have no nostalgia for it. They don't like the graphics of it. And they ask themselves, why would they want to play something that it's like backsliding. It's like going backward. You're not,
So I find the best way to get young, because all of my kids play and enjoy second gen stuff. Not nearly as much as they play their Steam games or whatever. But they all enjoy it. And I found like you almost have to feel like that guy in the white van being like, I've got candy. But you show them like you let them play like the recharged games.
Yeah.
And then you say, and they enjoy them. Yeah, they're not going to be their top games or anything, because they're playing whatever else is new and modern. Like Helldivers is a game my kids play, and some other games. But then you say, hey, do you want to know what this was? You want to see the original? It's like here's a reference that you probably won't get, but Doctor Who. If you want to get somebody into Doctor Who, you show them the new stuff before you show them the cardboard sets and the black and white and all that stuff. But you get them hooked. You get them hooked on that, and then they're like, "Oh, I want more. I want to know the history and the lore and all that." And then you show them that. Yeah. So you can't just plop. You can't take a 20-year-old and just sit them in front of a 2600 and be like, "Ah."
Right.
You've got to be like, hey, this is where it all came from. Do you want to see where it came from?
The nostalgia and the awe for me for those older systems was just to simply be able to play at home, because back in the day when I came up, I remember a time where that wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even possible.
Yeah. And so there is no kid today that is going to ever feel what you felt with video games. Unless there's some big massive, like even VR, it's like, oh, this is a neat new thing, but they expect that, right?
Right.
They expect whatever comes out, it's going to be like a cooler and better version, as opposed to, you were around when the industry was created. I came very shortly after it. Um, but yeah, so they'll never have that same thing. So you've got to get them to it a different way if you're really trying to get the younger generation into, at the very least, appreciating where it all came from, which you can, there's an argument to be made that it all came from the first generation. I would say that really video games come from the second generation.
Yeah, they do
Like
really.
that first generation was almost like the tech test for what could a game system be. And then when the 2600 came out, and even the RCA Studio 2, and like, but when they started to come out, and it's like, oh, you've got interchangeable games, you've got, like, that's when it really, and the footprints of that are all over what is out today.
Yeah. Now, one thing too, it's a generational thing. Even with consoles, like it's easier to get. Like my granddaughter, she loves a lot of Gen 3 games.
Yep.
She's okay with a lot of that, but like the Intellivision, maybe some ColecoVision she might like. I don't know, but not so much as the NES or like the Master System or whatever. I don't know what it is. I guess because of the technology and the gameplay aspect changes when technology changes.
But there's also an imagination component to second gen stuff, more so than third gen and on. Like Dr. Scott makes, like, he made a video on how adventure sucks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And his argument was like, you play as a square. That wasn't a problem back then.
No.
That was the norm back then. I almost liken it to, like, I appreciate black and white films. I appreciate black and white films very much. I studied film, do all that. I could never get into radio dramas. Whereas my dad, he appreciates it, like, just because he's an earlier generation, he does appreciate the radio dramas because he remembers them. He was born at the tail end of them, but they, like, it's just, what is more relevant to you? And so,
Yeah, I
like, my
mean,
kids, you know what? The older two, they appreciate black and white films. But my younger, my daughter, you show her a black and white film, she's like, "Oh, can we watch something else, please?"
right,
It's just, there's more disconnection there.
right. And I was just thinking while you were talking, nostalgia plays such a big role in keeping all of this alive.
It does.
It just, if you don't have some sense of nostalgia now, companies like Atari, they're making their money right now on nostalgia, but eventually those of us who have nostalgia for
Will be
Atari are
dead.
all going to be gone.
Yep.
And so if they, and we talked about that in a different episode
In
once.
fact, we talked about that our very first episode of the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast.
I didn't remember which one. Wow.
Yeah, the very
And that was,
first
we had
one with
100
Hozier.
episodes. So that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. And unfortunately, since we did that episode, I haven't really seen Atari do a whole lot to be progressive and forward moving with what they're doing. And so I don't.
Bubsy 4D.
Yeah,
Bubsy 4D
right.
is out.
Yeah, I know, but nah.
We joked in that podcast about Bubsy becoming the mascot, and it kind of has now.
Yeah. You need, I guess, since you're with Brian there, you guys should just kind of keep it as the mascot, because I don't know that
it's been mentioned, I think, once.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, so I want you to do me a favor. I want you to explain to the audience, in different, and Reader's Digest detail, the difference between the emulation and FPGA. because a lot of people there that, obviously we talked about the ROM dumping versus just,
Yep.
I
Reading from
guess
the
I guess
cart.
we kind of did talk about that.
Yeah, but if you want to be specific, so one thing that I want to make very clear to everybody, especially like I love FPGA systems. I have all the analog stuff. If they didn't open a second batch of the analog 3D, I would have gotten a mod retro, the M64 that's coming out. Um, like I love my FPGA systems, but anybody trying to feel superior and telling you they're not emulation is lying. FPGA is emulation. The difference is it is hardware emulation. So when you're doing software emulation, like a Stella or a JZINTV, or whatever. If we want to go way back, I started with Nesticle. That was a NES emulator in the
Oh, I've
late
heard of
90s,
that. I
early
don't think I've ever
2000s.
seen that. I don't. It might still be out there somewhere. I don't know.
I'm sure you could get it and maybe in the Wayback Machine, but
That's
um
cool.
but so you're trying, like, it's software that is emulating uh the environment so that you can open up a ROM, and it's just, does it play the ROM like it's supposed to be played? Whereas an FPGA is emulating the hardware. FPGA stands for Field Programmable Gate Array. So you are writing to that chip saying, act as if you are this chip with these resistors and these capacitors and all this stuff, with this crystal oscillator and all that. And that way, when you emulate that way, you can then create a system that will interact with the cartridge the way an original console would. So, not all FPGAs are created equal. You, it is just as up to the programmer as like Stella would be. Stella is a perfect example because it's damn near perfect emulation, which is why Atari uses it for the 2600 plus, or a version of it for the 2600 plus. But yeah, when it is programmed well, it is a beauty to behold because you can play ROM files, you can insert a cartridge, and it interacts with a cartridge just like a real one would. It doesn't have to rip it, which is great. Particularly, I'm big into the Intellivision homebrew community. We have JLP carts which prevent ROM dumping.
Yeah.
And so an FPGA would be great because it doesn't have to dump the ROM. It just interacts with the cartridge the way a real system would.
Right. And it's getting into the homebrew thing. A lot of these guys that we know who develop them, they won't release a ROM anyway until they've sold a certain number of the.
That's a business model thing.
Yes.
So the Sprint, I do have a bit of sympathy. I love the Sprint because it opens Intellivision up to so many more people. And I think more people are playing Intellivision now than were 2 years ago.
Oh
Which
yeah.
is a great thing. Um, in the same way that the 2600 plus, I think more people are playing Atari 2600 now than were 3 years ago or whenever that came out. But the entire Intellivision homebrew scene was completely based with physical media because that was the only way you could play the games. Emulation was and still is around, but as you know, it's not easy to get good compatibility. JZINTV is hands down the best emulator. It's very accurate, but it's a header-based system, which is why you and I both use Michael Hayes' front end for it. But before Michael sent us that, I couldn't emulate Intellivision. I could not figure it. Like every
Me
once in a
either.
while, a game
I
would work.
struggled.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to. It was a configuration things, or and I just the how
It wasn't
to
easy.
wasn't
It wasn't
there.
easy.
No.
And so what the Sprint has done, despite the fact that it has opened up a huge opportunity for things like ROM sales, I still think the Champ Games model is great, but Intellivision publishers are not the programmers. With Champ Games, he programs his own games. Now the Champ Games Presents stuff has introduced something else, and I believe he has a profit sharing model similar to Atari Ages. But Intellivision didn't have any of that. And so now when you have a whole business that's based on physical, but everybody just wants digital because they have their Intellivision sprints, how do you make your money back? Because they're paying 3, 4, maybe even $5,000 for the programmer to make the game, and then they need to recoup their money.
Right. It's not like they whip it up in a day and, you know.
And there are, like, on the low end, like, you know, there are programmers out there that'll make a game for $1,000 or whatever, or just sell you the physical rights. That's how Brian's Man Cave worked for a long time. Like, I sincerely doubt he was making big bucks on some of the games he was putting out, but he'd sell the physical rights, and Rev would sell them. And Intellivision Revolution, that's who I'm referring to when I say Rev. He would do a run of games, and they'd be priced a little lower than say an Electronite or an Intellivision Collector, but you knew what you were getting, and they're fun. You know, they're not going to be pushing any boundaries, but they're fun little games. And yeah, so whoever can figure out how to make that model work, that digital first model work, is going to be king of the Intellivision homebrew sooner rather than later. But right now they're struggling.
And I think personally, I think they're going to continue to struggle, and that's because of demand. I just don't know, you know, if people like.
There's plenty of demand for the digital product.
Yeah, but
yeah,
you know, is it going to cover, you know, William Muller's time that he puts into making those games? And as far as we're talking about Intellivision right now, he's the really the model.
Electronite has well, I would not call him the model for business model.
I'm not saying business model. I'm talking about his.
But he has been the gold. He has been the gold. Electronite has been the gold standard of Intellivision homebrew for a long time. Yeah. I would make the argument that in the last year or so, Intellivision Collector is approaching that. But like, William has a library of games with Electronite that are the envy of the homebrew community, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to move on just a little bit.
Yep.
I'm going to ask myself this question. I'm going to answer it for me, and then I want you to kind of give me your take on it. Okay. The question is, first of all, I do consider myself a purist. I like playing on original hardware, and I like playing on CRTs if that hardware was designed for it.
Mm-hmm.
Would purists accept playing games in emulation? And for me, I'm going to say yes, and I'll tell you why. First of all, there are, for pretty much any system out there, there are multi-carts that will store ROMs and will dump the ROMs into the original hardware, and you can play them. You know, Evie from Backbit, she had how many different adapters does she have for that thing? And I mean,
loads.
Yeah, and it does Gen 2, Gen 3. I don't know how much further they go, and you can put all of your games on one little micro SD card because the file sizes are so small. You can do that very easily. And you kid with me. I kid about being retired and not really being able to afford it, even though I'm all constantly showing.
You buy literally stuff 5 times as much as I do, and I work.
Right. I have a wife that
she's very kind.
Yeah, she's very kind to me. But even so, I have focused right now more if I buy something physical. 9 times out of 10 right now, if it's a game, it's going to be a homebrew. And the rest, I buy multi-carts. I have multi-carts for almost every console that I have, that are cartridge based. And I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. Now, would I love to have all of those games in a collection? Sure, I would. That would be awesome. But it's from a financial standpoint, from a room standpoint, it's just not practical for me to do that. And so I would, and emulation is multi-carts that you're emulating a ROM then. So that's my answer. I would say yes for me.
Yeah. I am what I would call a reformed purist. I used to be very much so. No, it has to be the original console on like a CRT television. Like I used to not play my systems on. I used to play on those little 13-inch CRTs that I have because I was like, no, I've got to play it on a CRT. It was great. I had one set up in my office and I could just turn, but then I'd have to set up the console every time. If I wanted to change the console, I had to do this, I had to do that. Whereas this channel has actually really made me appreciate emulating more.
It's
Because
easier.
I
It's
can sit
easier.
down and and I've gotten stuff to make it feel more authentic. Like when I stream, I use an Xbox controller. 99% of the time. But something that I'm actually making a video on that'll come out very soon, I have what's called the Ultimate PC interface, where I can plug any second, third, I think there's even one or two there, or at least one fourth gen system. As long as it has a DB9 port, I can connect that and I can play my emulated games with an authentic controller. Because I think that is the real key to the authentic feel is the original controller. As opposed to CRT scan lines or anything like that. Yes, you're missing a bit of the experience, but if you are a purist, you're far more likely. Like my dad is a purist. He loves Atari 2600, but it's got to be a CX40 joystick. Otherwise, he's not going to play it.
I'm the same way.
Exactly.
I'm the
Exactly.
same way. Even if I'm emulating, I gotta if I'm doing 2600, I gotta play it this way. I just have
And
to. I don't.
so you've got ones now that have a USB port, or you could take something like the Ultimate PC interface and you can use your original 1970s, 1980s joystick and plug it into your computer and play with that.
Yeah.
And so I got my dad set up on his laptop with Stella, and I got him like for his convenience, I just got him one of the Atari joysticks that has a USB. Um, he loves it, and now he's playing more Atari than he ever did. I remember for his birthday many years ago, I refurbished a 2600, and he had like 15 games or something, and he played it a lot in the first 3 days, and then he didn't touch it again. But now that it's on his laptop and convenient, and he can play it with a joystick, uh, he's playing Atari a lot more often.
Mm-hmm. Well, retro is a point of view. It depends on who is considering it to be retro. Like if it may be like a Gen 2 console may be retro for a guy in his 20s, but it's so far back that he just doesn't care. But the
The
problem
guy in
is
his
that, like,
20s, it's no longer retro, it's ancient.
yeah,
Yeah.
and but a problem that these younger people are going to have because of nostalgia and their feeling for these games is, let's say they amass a collection of PS5 games or Xbox
Mhm.
Series X games, and they've got, the shelves are full with this stuff. And then all of a sudden Microsoft shuts down Xbox.
Store.
Most of those games you can't just put in and play like we've done with the older gen stuff. It needs like major updates, and will not play it unless they have those updates. And I see that happening. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to
Oh,
see
yeah.
that happening with Microsoft and Xbox. They're laying off people left and right, and who knows what's going to be
It's already
available.
happened.
Yeah.
It's already happened. You look at stuff that, like the Xbox Live Arcade on Xbox 360, I remember was such a big thing. And a lot of those games are just lost to time. When you don't have any physical, um, and when you are in a situation where the game isn't on the disc, which, people are like, "Oh, Nintendo isn't putting, it's a download code on a thing for the Switch too." And they're not wrong, but why are you so outraged? It's been like that. It's been like that since the PS4 and the
Right.
Xbox One. In a lot of cases, you put your disc in and it's got a 30 gig download. The game isn't on the disc when it's that big.
I, w-
Um,
I will say, just
sure.
to hold that thought, I will say though, it's definitely a convenient thing, because like even with PC gaming right now, like Steam or GOG or Epic, some of these
Yep.
places, they're Blizzard, they're offering games that I played on PC that after different operating systems got updated, we went from XP to Windows
Yep.
7 to Windows, on and on and on. As the newer operating systems came in, the games, you couldn't play your games on your PC anymore unless you had that
Mhm.
older operating system. But on Steam or a lot of these others, I guess they do, like, the compatibility thing, and they fix it, and whatever updates
Yeah.
that Windows decides to do, they adjust, and you can, as long as Steam's still around and you purchase those games, it's a very convenient thing.
Convenience, yes.
It,
Convenience at the expense of permanence.
right.
And so Steam has a very good track record, but I guarantee you Steam won't be around forever. Um, the one thing I will say about GOG, and I've only ever downloaded 2 games from GOG, and that was Civilization 3 and Red Baron 3D, 2 games that I loved when I was in college. Um, you download the file. So as long as I've got that file, like GOG can go away, I've still got my games because I downloaded an exe. Um, so that is, I would consider that to be a big problem. Is that, like I said, like with the Xbox Live Arcade, with games that were in the Wii online shop or the Wii U online shop. I've never been like, PlayStation was my primary console for the last half of the PS1 and probably first half of the PS2. But since we went, like, I've been more of an Xbox guy when it comes to the big system, and then I'd have the Nintendo system on the side. So I don't know how they've been with theirs, but any any game that's a digital only release is at severe risk of being lost to time because nobody will have it. There was a demo for a new Silent Hill game that never happened, and people who downloaded it to their PS4s, or maybe even PS3s. I forget how old it is. But it was a little horror game. It was a demo game, and you had to go around these hallways like 4 or 5 times. I forget what it's called. P something, PT
I don't
something.
know.
Um, but there was a period of time where, like, because the project was scrapped, and they took it out of the store. But if you would download it on your system, you had it, and you could still play it. And so there was a point in time where selling the consoles who had that installed on it would get you like an extra 100, $200 for the console because it was installed on the drive. None of those work anymore.
Mhm.
None of them.
It's very sad. And if you look at, once the nostalgia goes, that's when the games are going to go, because,
And
like,
that's, can I add one thing to that?
sure.
Because here's the big problem with that. The nostalgia drops, and that's usually like at the end of the system. They say the best time to collect for a system is like 2 years after it is canceled or whatever, because nobody cares about it. But then what happens 15, 20 years after, the nostalgia comes back. And the great thing about, our childhoods is that that stuff was all physical. It still exists. It might be in small quantities, but it still exists. You can, and people who have it, even if it's incredibly rare, can dump the ROM and then everybody can play it. But if we were kids now, my kids 30 years from now, let's say 20 years from now, my oldest will be 40. And he wants to go back. He's like, "You know what? I loved playing that game on the PlayStation 4. I want to find it again." And he'll be able to find the disc. It won't have anything on it. And that because the online servers are gone, and that game that he is then nostalgic for is just completely lost to time. Nobody has it because nobody was going to pay for the space. Nobody was going to pay to keep servers running. Nobody cared. Like, you look at all this artwork, all the artwork from like NES games, like the boxes and stuff like that. A lot of it, people fished out of the dumpsters behind like Konami or Capcom or whatever. It was saved by us. It wasn't saved by the companies. And right now, we're in a situation where the only people who have the files, the only people who actually have those games, not just installed on a system that you hope your hard drive doesn't die. They have the source. The only people are the companies, and the companies don't give two craps.
And the problem is, you probably know the story better than I, but wasn't there some kind of video game museum or something where they were trying to preserve old games, and there were like some ultra rare games that like you can't get anymore, and it went to court. I don't know if it was Nintendo or whoever it was, and the museum lost, and so the
Really?
companies, not only do they not care, they don't want you profiting after the fact, right?
Yeah, I know that there are. So I'm not familiar with that story. That's an interesting story. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, I
But there
don't know the
are
details.
institutions around that are actively trying to preserve stuff. The problem is that the stuff that they're able to preserve is not the modern stuff, because the modern stuff will be retro at some point. It will be historically relevant. GTA 6, it's getting a digital only release. Nobody will have a physical copy of GTA 6. Seems like ever. So when all those hard drives fail and all that, will GTA 6, will people be able to look back and be like, "Hey, in 2026, this was the number one game." 100 years from now, maybe not.
If
Probably there's probably some way that it's going to be saved.
right,
But I
and
do know, sorry, the point I was trying to get to is that like the Strong Museum of Play, I got to tour their archives, and they have, the problem is money, but they have so much in their archives. They have all the internal tapes from from Atari, where they were like recording, just driving around in the parking lot to get physics for pole position and stuff like that. They have all this material.
yeah.
Um, and if only they had the budget, like and even if they had the budget, it would take them decades to go through it all. It's really incredible. But right now, it's like, how do you save the PlayStation 5 library when nobody really owns any digital, even Steam? And I know like Brian BD Retro Mods, he's really big on Steam because Steam has a great track record, but they won't be around forever. They will not be around forever.
Now, do you think gaming in general will be around forever? I mean, let's forget phone gaming because everybody's got a phone, everybody's got games on their phone. But I'm
Okay, so
talking,
you're talking about console gaming.
yeah, like, and you can even emulate that stuff now on phones, that kind of thing. But
I
my point,
think I think gaming in some way, shape, or form will always be around, and it always has been around. It was around before video games. Sports exist because people found a rock and a stick and is like, hey, let's do something in the woods because we're bored. Um, and this was, like cavemen doing
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Right.
So gaming will always be around. I don't know if like people like you and I would recognize we'd recognize that it's gaming, but it wouldn't look anything like 1,000 years from now. Who knows? Um, or
It's kind of
maybe
sad
as a
to think
species
about.
wipe each other out.
It's kind of sad to think about because you were talking about value going down and then going up. Well, here's the problem that I see, and I'm thinking about my particular situation. I'm looking where I'm sitting from the chair that I'm sitting. I don't, based on my family record, I don't foresee me being here in another 20 years,
Mm,
right? So, um, all that nostalgia, all the things I love about retro gaming, everything that I have in my collection, let's say hypothetically I had it, I kept it, my kids may come in and they may not like, we don't really care anything about this. Let's see how much we can
mhm,
sell this for. And, over time, that'll happen and happen and happen more.
mhm.
And so gaming is alive and well right now. It is alive and
Yep.
well. You can retro game, whether it's PC or console gaming, pretty much. And like, I'll give you an example, Raspberry Pi. If you have a Raspberry Pi and a big enough micro SD card, and it's or Orange Pi or some of these fast
Yep.
little single board computers, you can play a ton of like, you can put so many games on there, you'll never ever be able to play them all. And
Yep.
I've kidded that, when I'm in a retirement home, I've had to figure out, okay, how am I can't take my collection with me, right? So I'm gonna have this HDMI TV on the wall, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
uh, all right, I have to make a decision. What am I gonna take? And uh, it's gonna be probably, if I had to do it right now, it would probably be like my Raspberry Pi and my arcade stick, my Atari dual fight
Mhm.
stick, or my iArcade, something that has a lot of games on it, if room is a factor. And I'll
Yeah.
still be able to enjoy everything that's there, but it's just not exactly the same. And
It
so
isn't. I will say this, and maybe I'm naive, but I have faith. We have people in society now, uh, who take the Renaissance Fair way too damn seriously. And
yeah,
they wanna eat authentically, and they wanna play the games authentically. We have, medieval martial arts where people dress up in full plate armor and they fight as knights would have back then, at least to the best of our knowledge. We have people who reenact Roman soldiers. We have people who reenact almost every era of history, and they're just absolutely fascinated with it, and they want to be as authentic as possible. And those are the people who preserve that culture, that way of life, even just in being fascinated in it, and uh, wanting to make sure that it doesn't completely die. And I
and
have faith that our little piece of pop culture will have people like that even 1,000 years from now.
the one thing that they won't have for it, though, is that nostalgia, and so it'll be more of a
No.
novelty kinda thing. Look, have you ever heard of Mike's Gaming Gala? Yeah, he did this, and he
Nobody's
did
gonna be talking about Mike's Gaming Gala in those,
I
but
don't know,
I'll tell you this, um, I have this'll seem odd. I have nostalgia for the Titanic. Not because I was on the Titanic or I was around when the Titanic was around, but
has to be a
because when I
show.
was a kid no, when I was a kid, I remember I was, like, 5 or 6 years old when they discovered the wreck, and it was all over National Geographic. I was fascinated, absolutely fascinated with this well, at the time, 70-year-old wreck. Feels weird to say because it's been 114 years now. Um, but just absolutely. And so now when I see anything Titanic related, I get a nostalgic feeling because of just that I was that wide-eyed kid. It's like, oh, it was the biggest ship in the world. The first time I went out, it hit an iceberg, it sunk. All these people died. It was such a big tragedy and such a big major event. Um, that's not to say, like, my kids will probably have some nostalgia because I remember my younger son, especially when he was 4 years old, asking to play Atawi. Um, and it was the most adorable thing, and they have some nostalgia for it. And I've even mentioned, it's like, when I die, you guys keep what you want and sell, you make good, probably decent money on my collection. And my older son's saying, it's like, no, we want to keep it. And he was
That's
serious.
that's pretty good. I mean that they like that, but
That said, once they realize how much it is, they'd be like, you know what, we'll keep this part of it that we really remember. And I never played Dad's Bally Astrocade, so that can go because somebody wants to buy it. But
right.
there will be people. There's the biggest market right now for people who play NES games were not alive when the NES was first run.
Really?
NES is really big again amongst people in their 20s and 30s. Um, like I said, it's an entry level. Yeah, that second gen is a little more difficult, but maybe you get them in with the arcades. And then they're like, "Oh, I really love Galaga. I want to play every single version of it." And then like it becomes maybe not a nostalgic pick, but a historical one. And with that first and second generation of video games, we are entering the age where to us it's retro. We played those when we were kids. But we're starting to enter a period when they are now going to be historic. And they truly deserve to be in that space as well because they are the founding of, like, we're talking about we've talked everything from like the start to GTA 6, and GTA 6 never could have happened without Pong.
Right. That's right. We are approaching an hour, and I try to keep it around there,
Mhm.
but I do want to ask you a question. Um, well, first of all, I think right now is probably one of the best times to be a retro gamer because of all the options that we currently have.
Absolutely.
I do. I think right now is probably
Unless you're buying systems and cartridges, in which case that was like 20, 30 years ago.
yeah. As far as collecting is concerned, that's a different story
Yeah.
altogether. But just to play the games, there are so many ways to do it now. There are handhelds that you can put all these games on. They're just all these different things, and so it's probably, like I said, the best time to be a retro gamer. But if we did our um, top 5 games that we would
Yeah.
play, of all times. I'm going to ask you if you could pick one console that you have, and with the game library complete, and you were on a desert island, what console would that be and why?
Okay. So one question, because you ran this question before. Uh, so I knew this question was coming. So I have one question for you. If it is a backwards compatible system, do you get all the backwards compatible games or just the games that were programmed for that system?
Oh, there's no, as long as the games don't require an update, yeah, I would say, yeah, you could do that. If the game requires an update, it's going to be hard to do on a desert island, I guess. But I don't know.
Well,
Let
no.
give
So
us
you said it has all the games. So magic, even if they're like digital in the cloud games, they're just magically on your system.
Okay. All right. Well, all
Yeah.
right.
So it's
So
the
the
entire
console.
library. But if it's backwards compatible, do I get like the PS3? Would I get PS2 and PS1 as well?
I'd say yeah. Sure.
Okay, then it's going to be the PS3.
Really?
If not, I would go Xbox 360 because I actually prefer the game lineup on the 360. But I think you have to. PlayStation 1, massive library. PlayStation 2, massive library. PlayStation 3, not quite as massive, but it's a huge library. And I don't believe PlayStation 4 is compatible with all of those. But if you get the big fat PS3, it's compatible with PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1. So if I could get all of those games, that gives me all the Metal Gear Solids, except for the last one, which really didn't feel like Metal Gear Solid. That gives me tons of Final Fantasy games. Man, it gives me more games that I could play, even if I played every second of the rest of my life.
And another thing too is a lot of these systems like the
And
PS2.
it has like the Activision Classics collection.
That's
It has
exactly
the
what I was just gonna
Intellivision ones.
say.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, because you'd be
So
able to.
that's I am a retro gamer. It's been quite a while actually since I played anything more recent than say Super Nintendo, really. Um but if you were like, okay, you can only have one system and you the real deal, like, and the reason I took the PlayStation is because their backwards compatibility was really good right up to the PS3. Um, Otherwise, like I said, I would have taken an Xbox, but yeah, man, I would be set. I would have no regrets with that pick. And even though it's a modern pick, you can play a lot on that system.
Yeah, I agree. That's not a bad choice, really. I never really thought about the backward compatibility aspect of it. So,
You know me though. I always find a way to cheat.
well, you know that when we picked our 5 desert island games, you even said it could be a collection as long as it was on the same in
Yeah,
the
I
sa
even tipped you guys off and told you how I was going to be cheating.
Yeah, yeah. And what was odd was, I think 2 or 3 of the games that I had on my list were basically the same games you had on your list, except for the games that I had
Mine
on my
came with
list were
like
in your
another.
collections.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I get it, man. Listen, I appreciate you being here, Mike. I have missed talking with you. We haven't been able to talk as much recently. A lot going on for both of us, but I had you on here. I asked you to come on because of your knowledge, your expertise in this area. It's not just because you're my friend and that we've known each other for going on 4 years now.
Yeah.
So there's more to it than that. So I appreciate you being here. We'll definitely have you back on Close Up. You let me know if there's a topic that you want to talk about, and we'll definitely consider having you on as long as it's something that I can contribute to, and that's kind of a
Yeah.
problem
Well,
sometimes.
you know what? You know what? If you have topics that you're thinking of and you're not sure, oh, who should I get as a guest? By all means, run them by me. I am more than happy. This is your space. This is Close Up with Retro Bliss. And I don't mind being close up with you, buddy.
Right, and that's one thing I like about this. I've had a lot of positive comments about the format of the show and this one-on-one situation, and it's not that I might not have more than one person on a close-up
Mhm.
episode, but so far the format with just one-on-one people seem to really dig. So,
If you well, and it's funny because the first couple MGG lives, I did that same thing, and I got similar feedback, like
yeah.
when we weren't doing the Retro Bliss rewind. But if you have two people, you should call it medium range with Retro Bliss.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
if you have three guests, you could say wide shot with Retro Bliss.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. I do like it, and I appreciate everybody who's actually watching because Close Up is not a regimented podcast. I do them when I can, and I post them, try to post them, kind of even it out so that people can get a little bit of retro bliss sometimes because it hasn't been very easy for me to stream these days. So, I definitely want to have you back. We got to figure out what we're going to talk about, but I definitely want to have you back. So, um, well, is there anything else you'd like to add to the show before we sign off?
No, I'm just I will say it does make me happy to watch these. I've watched all of them. I haven't commented on necessarily on all of them, but I've watched all the close-ups that you've done, and it makes me happy to see you still doing something kind of in the same realm because we do miss you on the Retro Replay podcast.
And I'll be back on that
You've
too.
been a guest a few times, yeah, but
Yeah, and you've welcomed me almost any time I do want to be on there.
yeah,
You've said I could come on. So much, and I'm going to touch on this. I think I've actually, by the time this post, there's going to be another previous episode that airs prior to this where I do like a little channel update. I'm right now, my mom has been in and out of the
yeah.
hospital like a bunch of times in the last month. And you know what happens when you go to the hospital and they send you home? You've got all these follow-up appointments and you got to go to the pharmacist to get her medications. You got to call and check up
Well,
on her.
thankfully, I don't know that yet.
Well, that's the way it's kind of reminiscent. When my dad passed away a couple years ago, I was taking both of those guys to the doctor so much, and it really kind of hurt my channel back then. And then I got my own issues. By the time this airs, I'm going to be healing from shoulder surgery. I've got shoulder surgery in 36 hours. They're going to do, they replaced the shoulder and they botched it. So they're going to try to fix it. And I'm going to be down hard for a number of months. So
all those years as a linebacker just ruined your shoulder.
dude, I did play football now. I did play some football, but that's not what did
it. Yeah.
That's not what did it. Being I was a letterbox mechanic, man. You know how, I don't know how it is in Canada, but our mailboxes, a lot of them are on these concrete slabs. And sometimes those slabs can weigh like 300 pounds or more. And so, there were a lot of times my boss would send me out there to either repair or replace those by myself.
Mm.
So, and we didn't have hoists or anything. I had dollies, but I didn't have like hoists and stuff. And so,
well, and you had to do it while keeping the horses from running away. And yeah.
I should have known. I should have known you were gonna leave with a jab.
Oh, it's a friendly jab. I love you.
It always is. And we were talking prior to the show. You and I, we've been retro friends. I consider, as far as I'm concerned, kind of a long time now. And we have a really good chemistry together, and we kind of feed off each other. And I really do enjoy that aspect as well. And we actually, so much so that I think both of us have shared our audiences with the channel. So there have been people that subscribe to you, find out about me, and they come over to see what I got going on, and vice versa. A number of people from my channel. So I love that, man. I love that. So I do consider you a brother, man. You're my retro brother. And even though
much younger brother.
Yeah. I'm almost old enough to be your dad. That's what's scary.
There's some mom joke in there, but I won't do that on this show.
Yeah, don't do that, because we gotta try to keep it PG whenever possible.
That's right.
That's for me to go over and
pose comments.
Go to close retro or hanging out with Poe.
Hanging out with Poe
off grid. Yeah. So all right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. To all my channel members and all of you who are faithful subscribers to the channel, we appreciate it. And so I will see you next time on Close Up with Retro Bliss. Thanks, Mike.